Okay. I would like to talk to you about, well, the topic I chose is pornography and romantic relationships. And there is a reason, first of all, why I would like to talk about this. You can call this like a coming out, coming. You can write that with a C-U-double-M, coming out episode, but it's not really because I've talked at length in my other content, sometimes on YouTube. There's one in, I think, Stories of My Life. And I've also talked in my podcast about this. My intention was always that if I talk about it openly, that it would be much, much easier to stop watching porn. I am now at the age of 34. I probably started watching porn at about 16. Before that, I had some images. I would masturbate to women in magazines. And the first time I masturbated was at the age of 12 with a friend at the time. He suggested it and we masturbated next to each other, which is kind of weird. But right, it's just, you're experimenting. And now the question arises, because I'm just gonna jump into the topic of pornography, because I have had now, like 18 years, if I calculate that correctly, of observing myself while watching porn and realizing why we as a society watch porn. And I mean, there's a lot of information that you can gather just by watching porn and what it tells you about society and humans nowadays. Well, the first thing that comes to mind, right, I don't have a script, I'm just talking the way I feel like. The first thing that comes to mind when I watch porn, or from my experience when I have watched porn, is that humanity has no clue whatsoever what sexuality actually is and what it means, like truly means to have sex. Most people that I see online, they miss the entire point of a sexual union between a woman and a man, right? Wow. Yeah. First of all, let's talk about all that cameras, like taking cameras into the bedroom, and why some people feel like it excites them very much. Okay, so there's so much stuff that I can say about this, like I just want to say it all. Because now I'm diverting a little from myself here. Because I've actually never recorded porn, but what I can say is that I did feel intrigued to do it. But I have thought about it adequately. It's the same with a threesome. I could have had one, but I decided not to. And why? Right? We as humans, we can have like visions, right? A vision of the future. And if you look at the state of affairs, like how are things now, you can basically project into the future how it's going to be in 50 years, roughly, right? You can look at children standing around like zombies with their smartphones. You can see all these young adults who are basically still children, because being 18 doesn't make you an adult. Just, gives you certain rights that you shouldn't even have at that age, probably, or that you should be protected from, such as drinking alcohol. You should be protected from that. But as we are being bombarded with all these weird kind of things, it's very hard to choose because everybody does them. But now you have to, who does it? Everybody who has a strong tendency to have a weak will. And I used to have, in certain areas, a very weak will. So I was a victim, you could say, by the pornographic industry that has an interest by exploiting other human beings and to put them on display while having sex. It's nothing else than... Have you watched that movie Django Unchained? Where they take these black people and they have them fight each other. That's what pornography is. You have a bunch of people, you have a crowd that's like cheering on people that having a tussle, because that's what sex in a way is. It's having a tussle between man and woman, right? It's like, two men, they fight, and two women, wow, they make life. Two men can never make life. Two women can also never make life. And a transgender confused person can also never make life because he's probably got his testicles removed. So you see, if you are pro-life, then transgender is pretty confused, right? If you are pro-life, then being gay is also pretty confused. I don't have to be against being gay, but I can say it ain't for me, because only confused people would choose to be gay, or really traumatized people. And my standpoint is rather, instead of nourishing my trauma and running away from it, I engage with it, right? It's like the same way you interact with your fear. You go towards fear. You say, hey, you scare me. Why is that so? Why do you scare me, right? This is how I engage with my fear. If I'm afraid, I go and look at it. Then I go and look at it. And then I gather information and I observe myself while I'm engaging. That's like, in spiritual terms, the observer. That's like the higher self and stuff. The kind of thing that people who rule our country have no clue about. So they're in charge. You see? It's like, oh wow, I can actually observe myself while I'm doing this, while I'm talking. I can have a third person view of how I'm engaging with the camera. It's like, oh wow, right? So I don't have to feel ashamed about it, right? I can just oh yeah, this is me. You see me? This is freedom, my friend. I can do this. There's no shame, because shame is here, down. Shame is the root chakra. Shame is an emotion of fear, and it can lead to anger and frustration. Okay. You see, this is a very extensive topic. Because if we want to understand why we as a society watch pornography, then we first have to ask, why are we so frustrated? Because if you look at humans on porn having sex, you know, they always do this like, right? It's not like this tight embrace where you slowly and gently move your hips. No, it's always this, I grab you by your shoulders, right? This is basically you are very angry. So you don't make love. It's like a gentle form of rape. Because you're so angry that you have to spank the woman that you should love, the woman that actually might give birth to your children, but because you are unable to love, right? It's like, this is anger. This is frustration. You're basically spearing a woman because you probably have a lot of hatred for women. Now you see how many factors play into this. Now one of the reasons why I watch porn is because I've been screwed over by so many women, not just because they were all bad, but also because I wasn't really myself. I was very unbalanced because I was frustrated, because I grew up in a system that has no need for my needs. This kind of system that these civilized people have created does not care about anything. The system doesn't care about nature, and it doesn't care about emotions, and it doesn't care about anything else. So just to say, there are certain things I cannot say here. I just would like to repeat that always, just to make it clear that this is not a platform where people can speak freely. This is a censored platform. I'm just saying that, And I'm afraid to say that because I might be jeopardizing my own project here. But I feel like it is important to say these things because it is censored. I cannot speak freely here about what I want to say, which might be good, I can't really tell. But it's the truth. And you just have to go into the community guidelines and look it up. There are things that I cannot say. And so the only thing I can say is that YouTube is censored. And if you don't abide by their rules, then that's it. They're gonna ban you. No questions asked. They're just gonna delete all your content. They don't even give you a warning. It's just like gone. Because that's the freedom I at least want to have, that I can say that's how it is. So when I speak about pornography, I cannot tell you everything about pornography that I have seen. I can try. There's so much, where am I gonna start? That actually the weight of the information that I have gathered on pornography is like, bam! Some of it I put into the book called Sexual Depression, because we live in a depression in general, because this society lives in a state of fear, and that is a depression. So some people, they come out in the open and they say, I'm depressed. I've said that already before. Everybody is depressed. Everybody is depressed. You just realized it and put a name on it. Most people, they're so afraid of being depressed because they've been like this all their lives. They're never gonna admit that because they want to pretend like, oh, I feel good. Because admitting to others that you actually have emotions, that's quite a stretch for most people. Because when you give in to your emotions, that's like that emotions are pure chaos. Emotions are pure chaos. You know, just to clarify that, it's raw potential energy. My entire creative content is based on my emotions. Most of it is certainly fear, but I've learned to bring it up and transform it into something more useful to myself, at least, because now I can look at it. Well, in terms of pornography, I can already look at it. And this makes you, this makes me a little anxious. Just want that this is a bit higher. Okay, I think this is better. I can look at it. So how do I watch porn? I do watch porn, and I do use porn for masturbation. But while I'm doing this, I'm observing myself, and I'm looking at what do I actually see there. Well, a lot of times I see confused children, because even a 50-year-old person that is stuck in a childhood trauma is a confused child. That's a fact. Because if you don't outgrow your childhood trauma, you will always be trapped in the state that you were in when you were a child. It's just like, alright? But of course, for that you have to understand a bit about probably spirituality, the self, psychoanalytics, or whatever, the human mind, or all kinds of things, I don't really have to. Talking to me is tiring. But anyway, okay, I'm losing track, or maybe I'm still on track, but also looking into the camera makes it for me a bit harder. Okay. Pornography in itself is a way to deal with our frustration. So if you watch a lot of porn, there are certainly things in your life that aren't the way that you would like them to be. Maybe you would like to have the opportunity to go more into nature. Maybe you watch documentaries all the time. Or maybe you watch movies about people that are in nature, even like Lord of the Rings, right? Or maybe you like movies like The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, right? Or maybe you just like movies in general. Well, the reason you like movies is because you're frustrated, because there's nothing else to do, or you don't know how to do it. So you're stuck. You're stuck in a state of, maybe in a state of shock, right? Because you've been shocked as a child. Yeah? We have some people that are really adrenaline junkies. And that's like the other side of the coin. It's like either doing nothing or like, like always tackling it, right? I don't know what's better. The middle for me is better. To like a bit of adrenaline, but also to like it nice and quiet, right? It's like balanced, right? That's where we want to be. We want to be centered. I turned off the screen now, because if it's on, I'm always looking at what I'm doing there, and that also, distracts me. You see now the topic is taking shape. I don't even have to do anything about that, because the story tells itself. I just have to connect the dots. Yeah, that doesn't work. That works a bit better. And that also does nothing. Anyway, yeah. Okay. I'm jumping, always. My mind is like that. It's like back and forth. Maybe it's going to, I don't think so. I think that's going to stay that way. You just have to hang on here. So now let's take a look at pornography. What does it do if you bring a camera into a room, not even the bedroom. Well, they've done research and they have shown that people behave differently when they're in a room and they know that they're being filmed. So you have a lot of people on streaming platforms like YouTube and stuff, right? And they do a lot of crazy stuff because they know they're being filmed. It's like there's another person in the room, even if it's not live, but you're gonna show it to people. It's like there's somebody else in there. So one reason why I like to film myself is because when I film myself, I also have to make sure that this room is nice and clean, right? If I wouldn't film myself, nobody would be here, it's just me. So why should I care? But if I invite other people, I at least gonna make sure that it's a bit clean, right? So now I could go and close this. But the thing is, I cannot always film myself, right? So if I'm always filming myself, I'm kind of trapped. Because then I always want to film myself, because without the filming, I cannot be as good as I would be without the camera. And then I'm dependent on the camera suddenly. Now I've realized that filming myself helps me in certain ways to push myself. So to me it was easier to go hiking with the camera sometimes, but also because filming myself gave me a purpose, right? I suddenly had a reason to go hiking because I am so alienated from nature, because most of my life I've been spending in rooms like this, closed off from everything. It's basically dead, it's hermetically more or less sealed. So I feel comfortable here. And that's already where the sickness starts, of course. By cutting yourself off from the environment, from nature, because we are actually a part of nature. But if we always stay inside, you will get incredibly frustrated. And now to add on top of that, not only that we are being forced to stay indoors most of the time, we also are being forced from an early age on to sit still on a chair. And chairs are the worst position for your body. I mean, you can listen to Ido Portal for this. I've been walking barefoot since 2012. I've been squatting since 2012. And I still have issues with my back because I sit too much. But it's getting better, I'm building up more strength, I'm standing more, I'm walking more, I'm moving more. I'm getting into this. And I know how to do it, I just had to do it. So I first had to work myself through all the shit, emotional stuff that I have inside of me that stops me from doing the things that I actually want to do. Right? So to see everything as materialistic is bullshit. Because I'm not a materialistic being. I'm an emotional being. Because emotions are energy, and I am energy. I consist of energy. This may be a manifestation. It looks like it's solid, but it too is made of energy. It's like maybe denser energy, but it's still energy. And when I die, that too will eventually dissolve and be reintroduced in the cycle of life. Right? So, apart from, I'm never in nature, and I was forced to go to school where I had to learn all these ridiculous things, and then I was forced to sit on a chair and be quiet all the time. where I wanted to express myself. I wanted to say, that's me, look at me, right? That's what children want. It's like, look at me, yeah? That's what children want. They want to be seen. But if you're one of 30 children in a school class with one teacher, you're not gonna get a lot of attention. So most of your life, you're just one of many. Nobody gives a shit about you. If you have bad grades, you're gonna get a tantrum from your parents who think it's a bad thing to have bad grades. But what's bad grades? I mean, that's like judging. Who can judge me? If I don't like school, what's bad grades then? It's good grades because it's showing that I actually don't like school. I'm bad at school. I'm bad at pleasing people who think I'm supposed to give the answers that they want me to give. I mean, school doesn't really appreciate free thinkers, right? No, they want everybody the same. You have to be like this, like this, like this. This is like the box. You have to fit in there, and if you don't fit in there, you're shit. That's literally this culture, yeah? And then everybody drinks coffee, everybody eats sugar, yeah? Everybody drinks alcohol, everybody drives around in cars, sits all day, inhales the fumes of their own laziness, and then they get home and then they drink beer, or they eat like really shit food that doesn't really come from nature anymore, but it's like super processed. So you also have to ingest all these toxins, which means you feel terrible. You feel incredibly terrible. Physically, like your body feels terrible because you're full with all this nonsense. And then you're also full with emotions that you can never express, because at this point, if you would express your emotions, you would probably punch somebody in the face, or you would shout at them, and then they say, oh, you cannot talk to me like this. Yeah, and then it's like, this is preposterous. What do you mean? I mean, you've been treating me like the fuckface. But then you have to understand, if you go to your parents and you say, you've been treating me like an asshole, you have to understand that they've been treated the same way. So there's no use to hold it over them, right? There's no use to go to anybody and say, you have treated me unfairly, because you've treated them the same way. Now you're just getting angry because you think, oh, wait, I have a choice. I can be angry at people because there's like free will and spirituality, and now I can just shout at everybody. Yeah. Then reap the consequence of your choices. Because you go to people, you shout at them, you say, you're an asshole. That just made you an asshole. Or just revealed that you are the same as everybody else. Because in the end, we're all the same. Right? That's why if I go to people and I say, oh, I'm depressed, and they don't understand me, well, because they feel the same way. So what are they supposed to say about that? You think they're selfish, but if you think they're selfish, it makes you selfish. It's all projection, which means you have to stay with yourself. You have to center yourself in the middle, which means you first have to collect all the parts that you've been missing from your life. All the trauma, you have to fill these holes in yourself. You have to heal that stuff. You see how complicated this is? It's not just, oh, I'm gonna stop watching porn. Well, maybe to you it is, I don't know. To me it wasn't, and it isn't, right? It's not that easy to me. Because every time I feel anxious, I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? It's dark now. What am I going to do when I feel anxious at night? Am I just gonna sit around here? Yeah, I could do that, but that's also really exhausting. So, I'd rather watch porn. Because then I don't have to be like this, right? Because if I stop watching porn, what am I going to do with all the energy that I suddenly have available? You know, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of energy. You know, if I do a lot of cleansing, which I have done, and I suddenly do a bit more workout, okay, I have done that also. And I get rid of all these trauma that I have. And suddenly, you know, I don't have so much stuff pulling me down anymore into the depression. And suddenly the energy starts rising up. It's like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do with this? You know, this is like madness. It's going to drive you insane. And in the end, you're just going to masturbate. You know, because I can't, you know, I don't have anybody to have sex with. And I also don't want to, because I want to take responsibility of myself. You know, I don't want to enter another relationship without having figured out my shit, right? I don't want to live together with somebody because I'm already in a relationship. Just have to say that the way it is. But, you know, I cannot live at the moment with anybody. That's why I live basically with myself, so I can figure out my stuff. Everything that's weighing me down. And most people don't do that. I mean, there's like most people, it's maybe 1% that understand that they can change and that they have the courage to also change. It's maybe 1% of the entire human population. Everybody else thinks either humans cannot change, or maybe they're fine the way they are, they actually don't have to change. I don't know if people like this exist. I haven't found them. You know, most people that I find, they just pretend that they're happy, but when they're alone, they feel terrible. Because if they would be happy, you know, they would be super active in the community. I don't know, they would be doing things. I don't know, they would dance, they would do crochet, they would paint, you know, they would do incredible things. But most people just take selfies because that's all they got. That's all they got. And so if you're making porn, what does that say about you? It says that you're so frustrated that you cannot think of anything else to do but to take, you know, it's like filming yourself taking a shit. That's what pornography is. You know, it's like filming yourself taking a shit. It's like filming yourself eating. That's what pornography is. Or just going for a walk. You don't have to do anything. You just have to have a hard-on and you have to have a girlfriend, and then you come together like, quick, quick, quick. Yeah, and then you can say, oh, I'm doing really good amateur porn. But in the end, it's just porn. You don't have to do anything for that. I mean, you can train, but that doesn't make you a more fulfilled being, because there's so much ignorance. If you're doing porn, it's like super ignorant. I mean, people who do porn, they don't generally think about having a family later on. But now also the question arises, when you start doing porn, I mean, did you never think about this? Like, did you never ask yourself the question, what's gonna happen if we have children? Because now you have to deal with it, that your entire sex life, there's no intimacy anymore. You know, if people see you on the streets, they're gonna call you out. I mean, there's people like that hide their face, but most of them have tattoos. And they have other physical features. So maybe people, you know, maybe you go to the beach one day, with your children, and then suddenly somebody comes, hey, aren't you that guy? Or that girl? It's like, oh, I thought I was hiding myself. Well, they're gonna hear your voice. And they, you know, some people, they pick up these things because they've been in your bedroom. You know, it's like there's stuff, like energy does exist. If you know how the energy of a person feels like, you can actually recognize them. There's no hiding anywhere. So of course, people who do porn, they should start asking themselves these questions, because you will never be able to get rid of that stuff. Once it's online, you cannot get rid of it. It's impossible. So how are you going to deal with it? Well, you can just stop and then confront it and say, okay, I've done it, but I'm going to stop now, right? And this is what everybody should do who's watching porn, right? You can say, okay, it's no fap, but to me, I want to understand why I'm watching it and why we as people watch it. But I also get to the point now where I actually know why we are watching it, and I know why I'm watching it. You know, it's like eating sugar. It's very hard to stop with that. So you have to slowly but surely transition from I'm watching a lot of porn to I'm watching a bit less of it. Because what porn ultimately does is it's draining you, because you have potential energy that's rising up in you, and then you don't know what to do with it and you feel anxious, and then you masturbate, that energy is gone. Now imagine you are in a relationship where you want to have sex, you want to engage with your partner, you want to have children, you want to be a father, you want to be good at life, but you're stuck on masturbating. That means that every time your battery is getting like a bit like higher than your navel, you don't know how to handle yourself anymore. And then you quickly run and masturbate. Or you watch a porn. Or naked women or something. So you have to work yourself through that. And that sure is a very, very strenuous process, but it is liberating, because at the end of it, you're gonna be, you know, Captain Fantastic. But more like in that movie with the guy who played Aragorn. Just look it up. It's a good movie. You know, you want to be a super cool dad who can take care of 7 children on your own. You know, that's the potential that you have. If you use the energy that you have instead of losing it all the time. So you charge your battery, and that's like, oh my God. So you have to have exercises that you do. Breathing into the stomach helps. Keeping yourself busy helps. Exercising helps. Learning how to channel it helps. Some people work with psychedelics. You know, that's for them to decide. If you know how to deal with them, most people do not. Most people that I see that use psychedelics, they just get lost in them. Right? Listen, with me it was different. You know, I talk about psychedelics because I managed on my own to work myself out of this. I used psychedelics to get rid of my trauma or to accept it and then heal, but I also found my own balance. Most people that I meet that do psychedelics, they're in the same place 10 years later because they don't confront that trauma. So in whatever way you want to confront your trauma, that's up to you. But you have to open up. And now imagine you're in a relationship and your partner wants to spend time. Like, I meet a lot of men, and that's also what I see in porn. Like, people are super anxious. You know, they cannot take it. If a woman comes close and she just wants to cuddle, you know, they start to fuck her because it makes them so anxious. You know, they cannot be in this place of love, so all they do is fuck all day. And that means, you know, in hentai, there's this category, where you call these women their owner holes. It's just like a dumpster for your frustration. So if you just keep using your partner for having sex, she's just your dumpster for your frustration, for your unfulfilled dreams and potential. And you, every time something happens, you just grab her. And a much better way is, to really spend time with each other. Instead of just having sex and then going back to bed or something, you should first just lay down with each other in the bed. And then you just start to cuddle, and you start to stroke each other, like gently stroke each other. You take care of your woman and she takes care of you. You give each other massages. This is uncomfortable in the beginning, because you have to first get to know your own body also. But you also get to know their body. And you actually have to encourage them to say what they want or what they want to try, but you're not required to do any of that. What that means is you start taking this relationship seriously, and you actually, instead of just fooling around and having sex like an idiot, you say, okay, this is going to be a family at one point. And now you have to ask yourself, is that the relationship that can be a family, or is it just sex? And if it's just sex, in my book, there's no use for that. At one point, I had roughly like maybe 12 partners. Some longer, some short. And after I had my first and only one-night stand, I said, that's it. I will not have casual sex anymore. And I haven't. So, because to me, a one-night stand, it was so terrible. I really need the time to first get to know a woman, then to engage with her, right? And then to come together. Like the fastest I had was probably 2 weeks, and then one night, and that was so terrible. And some people, they do this all the time. They're just running from one thing to the next. At one point you just have to settle down and say, stop. Learn to be alone. First live your own life. Have no sex. Just start figuring out what you like. And then you can go into a relationship. And if you already have a partner and things are really bad and you're just fighting all the time, you can start making changes. You can say, hey, listen, I know it's really rough, but I also need time for myself. I need to figure out in this relationship who I am, also by myself. So I need time for myself. And I think you need to do the same. And now we have to figure out if we really want to be together. At this point, it also depends a lot on the woman you are with. I'm talking to you like you're a man, right? Because some women are really afraid of being left. And for some women, it's already just suggesting this might drive them away from you. But you cannot stop that. Because if you are true to this woman, you have to let her do this. You cannot run after her. Because then you're not doing what you said you wanted to do, which is figure out who you are and what makes you feel alive. Because how can you sort out your life if you're running after women all the time? Even if you think she's your destined to be whatever. So at one point you just have to stay put, spend more time alone, and secretly prepare yourself to be a father, right? If you have that chance. When you're already a father, well, figure it out, right? Then you have a partner, and then you just have to talk things out. Make it work. Because if you've been in love before, I'm sure you can be in love again. It's just a way of... And that's the thing, right? Some people in relationships, they're really selfish. I mean, do it for your child, man. Your child deserves a functioning relationship. And the way I see it, it's mostly the man, because women aren't rational. You cannot talk to a woman about certain things. You just have to do this with your intuition. Because if your girlfriend or wife is throwing a fit, you know, she's going nuts, well, you've been ignoring her too long, which means you have to spend more time with her. You have to pay attention. Does she need help? So what? You come home from work and then what do you want to do? You want to sit down on the couch? Well, your wife has been taking care of the children all day. You think that's easy work? That's very hard, because children need a lot of attention. And she needs a lot of attention. So you take care of your woman. So your woman takes care of the children. And when the children are happy, she takes care of her man. And when the man is gone, she takes care of herself also. So you sometimes take care of the children so that the woman can take care of herself, so that you can come together again and be happy family. I mean, it's that easy. It's not that easy because most men, they're so rational because they're just trying to think. You know, that's how I was. I tried to think all the time, what does she want from me? You know, I don't understand it. But then I learned about the language of emotion. And I learned to understand, instead of listening to what women are saying, because they don't say things that make sense. They speak emotionally. So you don't listen to the words, you listen to the emotion that's behind the words. Yeah? So if a woman comes and they say something, and they know it's gonna make you angry because they want to have a fight. Well, if a woman wants to have a fight, she wants to have sex. If a woman wants to have sex, then she feels empty. Then she needs love. If you don't give it to her, she's either going to be very, very infuriating, or she's going to get another man. And you don't want that either. So you have to pay attention. You have to be super focused. You have to be like a predator. You have to be in charge of your own emotions. And so that your surroundings can feel safe with you. And that means if you're in charge of your emotions, that means that if whatever comes, like maybe a pandemic, you don't lose your cool. Because you're like a chief, right? You're gonna stand there and say, I figured it out. No. I am the eye of the storm. And the woman, it's femininity, it's female energy, it's chaos. That's nature. It's chaos. That's potential, raw energy. It's boom. I mean, women are like tigers, some of them. I mean, some are more like sloths, but some men are also more like a sloth, right? But some women, they're like... So you have to learn how to keep your shit together. So that when nature, in the form of a woman, comes charging at you, you say, I love you, and then she's gonna kick you in the balls. And if you're good, you're just gonna, avoid that, and then you're gonna kiss her, and then you're gonna make love to her. And then she's gonna be like, right? So you're gonna be like a stallion, and she's gonna be like a female horse, whatever that, I don't know how that's called. That's like the ideal state, the way it's used to be. If you ever watched 300, this is Sparta. There's people sleeping, it can't be real loud now. But if you watch that, how he is with this woman, his wife, it's not his wife in real life, Sparta, it's just a lie. Come on, movies are just lies. If you're watching at home a lot of movies or porn, your life is a disaster. I don't say that to depress you, I say that to show you that you're already depressed. Because if you would know how to live, you wouldn't watch any movies. You would probably make movies to teach people how to lead better lives. Or you would go out hiking, or I don't know, do crochet, do anything. Like I've shown you, but I make that hat myself. I don't do it all the time, but sometimes I make it. I like that. Anyway, so there's a lot to figure out, but just realize if you're watching porn, you're frustrated. Something's like not right. The same when you're smoking. You're trying to run away from something. So you have to start taking responsibility so that you can become like a real man. How men used to be. Not these sorry suit-wearing idiots that are running the show. Like real men. Like hardened men. That like, bam, Alter, that can keep a village safe. Politicians are pussies. They're like perfumed aristocrats. You don't want to look to them as a role model. Because all they do is yap, 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 yap. That's how it is. There's this show from Rick and Morty where they go to this planet and it's the Purge planet. And then they figure out, oh wow, it was all the rich people that had all the poor people, fucking each other so that they can take all their money. This is welcome to this world. You're being exploited and kept in a state of frustration that you're so busy being frustrated that you cannot rise above, which means that you keep carrying the thing these aristocrats sit in, which is the state. That's what it's all about. So they don't really mind that there's stuff like pornography out there. They don't really mind because that's what they want. That's what they desire. Because the state in itself is just greed. And greed never gets enough. These people don't sit around and think, how can we help humanity? They think, how can we get more from them? Right? Because we want more power. This is the way it is. And so you first have to also accept that, because that's a very frustrating thing to realize that you have been exploited all your life. By the people who govern you or who you allowed to govern you, but also by friends. Everybody exploits each other. So somebody has to break the cycle. It's like Daenerys Targaryen said it. She's just a character. But she said, I want to fucking break the wheel. I want to break the wheel. But she got mad, so she couldn't break it anymore, because she just kept feeding the wheel. And that's the problem. Once you start realizing that there is a lot of power, that you can use that, then it's your choice. For what are you going to use this power? Are you going to use it to suppress people? Or are you going to use it to lift them up? But you cannot force people to be lifted up, because that means without you, they're gonna always go back to where they came from. So it's better to just leave people as they are, especially in your family. Just help yourself. See to it that you're good without being overly selfish, but be a bit selfish about it. Make sure that you're good. So if your girlfriend or your wife is throwing a tantrum because you say you need to figure out your life, well, you just have to say, I have to do it, because otherwise we're going to be in this place for the rest of our lives, and we're going to have fights. I want to have a romantic relationship that is loving and caring, because I want to have that for our children. So I believe, and there are relationships that work like this. Even when you already have children, where you say, let's just have our own apartment for a while, and then let's just start going for walks again. But I really have to do this. If you say that and she leaves you over it because she thinks you're never going to come back, well, can't change it. Because everybody is responsible for themselves. And that's basically it. So all I can do is talk about these things. What you do with this kind of information is ultimately your own choice. And, right, in any case, you cannot really do anything bad with what I'm telling you, because once you start working on yourself and understanding a little how the game is played, then you will change and you will start seeing the world in a different way. So why would you still want to exploit people, right? Thank you for listening.